Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt. We've got Frank Mylar with us today, running for Attorney General, and just coming off the state convention.
Yep.
Where you came out in first place.
Yep. That was a great day for me.
Yeah. So, in fact, you were very close to taking it all, right? I mean, 0.25% away.
Yeah, I think if 5 votes had switched, that would have been, it was 0.24%. But again, like I said.
So that was 5 votes statewide, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, out of 4,000 delegates.
Yep.
That's quite a, that's a hard race because it's a statewide race. You got to go everywhere.
Yeah, and the hard part is like having a 12-day trial, having a Supreme Court brief and a 10th Circuit brief. It really hampered me the month leading up to the convention. I wasn't actually able to get to St. George until right after that trial, with the Tuesday before the convention. I went down there Wednesday, had a podcast. A ton of people apparently listened to it because they said they immediately changed to me after hearing that one podcast.
So who were you on the podcast with then?
Michelle Tanner.
Oh, okay.
And then I was also had a good large meeting at somebody's home down there, and they ended up being completely sold on me just meeting them. I honestly feel like between the podcast and in the group I met with, that it kind of just spread like wildfire.
That's cool.
So, and I think
it's interesting, the dynamics of the whole thing, isn't it?
Yep.
So what was your impression at the state convention?
My impression just of
being there and the delegates and.
Well, I think that it was, like I said, I really believe that if people actually listen to and compare the candidates. I told people earlier on, they need to just Google us. But if they hear just the facts, set politics aside and say, hey, here's someone that's actually fought for people's constitutional rights. Here's someone that has a lot of legal experience. I think that was resonating. I think that as that message got out, and that was really the message of my speech. And basically, I talked about cases that I had and that I was successful on. And I think the delegates loved it and voted for me.
Yeah. Well, personally, I love the caucus system because I feel like the people that are involved, they're serious about what they're doing. They take that responsibility very seriously, and They really do find out a lot about the candidates.
Yeah. I was really pleased. The first round, we have 4 people in the first round, and I had just about 43%. So that was really exciting.
So it's hard for anybody else to catch up to that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I actually gained more in the second round, which was also interesting.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting process.
Yeah.
So. These delegates showed up at 7:00 and stayed till after midnight. Pretty incredible, right? The dedication of people.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the delegate system that's really important for me is they want to get to know people. Yeah. And a lot of people, let's face it, they don't put their AG race as the most important race.
Right.
I think it is one of the most important positions because it is the person that should be protecting people's constitutional rights. And so they just kind of set that aside, and a lot of people hadn't interacted with me until probably the 2 weeks before the convention.
Right. Yeah, so you had to talk to a lot of delegates, did you?
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty amazing. I know you've got you've got people that know you quite well, but it's not like fairly unknown. The money thing, right? I mean, that's a hard part of it, especially this next phase that we're going to. But it's kind of cool that you can get through the process of being one of the people on the final, on the primary ballot, and it's mainly just hard work, right?
Yeah. It is.
And connecting with people.
Yeah. And I think that just the fact that delegates want to know, they really want to know about the candidates is really exciting. And, this second stage, you have to push beyond that a little bit.
Right.
You have to kind of wake up the voters out there and say, hey, you need to look at this race, and hey, you need to look at the different candidates.
So now this next phase, what do you see going on? What are you planning, and how are you going to go about this next phase going up to the primary? Because it's June 25th, right? So it's coming upon us.
Yeah, it's exciting, I think, because things are coming together. I've said this all along, that I think that $1 for me is like $5 for the other candidates. And the reason being is almost everybody is helping me in every way you think about it. I get discounts on signs, I get discounts on T-shirts, I get discounts on buying media, all these different things that a lot of the other candidates are paying a lot of money for. I'm usually getting them less, and it's usually because a lot of people are volunteering. Yeah. And that's I think going to still be the case, going forward and in this next round. I think that one candidate spent over $350,000, another candidate $100,000, and they didn't get very many votes, at the convention. So and I think that, to be fair, in the AG's race, all 4 candidates were fighting hard to win the convention.
Right. Yeah.
There wasn't anyone just slacking and saying, "Oh, I'm going to do signatures." One person did do signatures, but he was trying to win the convention.
Right. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious. What advice would you give other people that want to run for office?
Oh, well, first of all, I think that you shouldn't run for office unless you really feel like you want to make a change. Right. I think that that's just essential. And that's certainly the way I am. If somebody just is caring about promoting themselves, honestly, I would tell them, just don't run. Because there's too many people, right? And, there's always too many people that just kind of want to promote themselves. And but I think there's always a need for statesmen, people that actually want to make a positive change, and that's what I'm about. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney all my career, over almost 37 years now, and I'm not going to do anything different. So Attorney General.
So before you worked at the Attorney General's office, what did you do before that?
Oh, I just worked at a couple firms downtown Salt Lake before. I wanted to work at the AG's office. That was my desire. So within a few months of getting my bar license, I actually started working at the AG's office. Oh, so pretty early on. It was 19.
So you spent most of your career there then, huh?
Well, it was 1988, and I left January 2001. So, and during that time, I was either an assistant attorney general or a special assistant attorney general. And part of that was being a section chief for a while in corrections section, as well as general counsel to the Department of Corrections.
Okay, interesting. So what's your goals for the office?
Well, that's great. One thing is, I really feel firmly that most attorney generals kind of feel like they're supposed to sit on a silk cushion or something, and they don't really manage the office. And I work for 3 different AGs, and they all seem to have that same attitude. I actually have an MBA, and I've also managed attorneys inside and outside the office. I've managed investigators, and so I know a thing or two about management. Right. And that's should be one of the jobs, is actually to be a good manager. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is to go around and know the attorneys. Yeah. I'm going to meet with them at least once a year, all of them. Sam Walton, when he was managing Walmart, right, he visited every store. It's one of the management concepts that you learn in MBA school. It's called management by wandering around. Right. And so that's one of the things I want to do, is I want to make sure everyone has the tools and resources that they need. If they're struggling, I want to be able to get them help. If there's some training that they need, I want that to happen. Or if maybe somebody needs to just switch to different divisions and some things like that. There just needs to be a little bit more care of actually managing the office. So that's part of it. Then there's the part we all know about, right? There is the opportunity to fight the feds. There is the opportunity to fight immigration, and there is in fighting crime, especially fraud. That's particularly an area that the AG's office deals with. And I have, I had my first felony fraud trial, 2 years out of law school in the AG's office. So that's a big area that the AG's office actually deals with. Very good. We're going to take a break. We'll come right back. Sounds good.
Hey Siri, how do I get to the state capitol?
John, the fastest way to get to the capitol is to make a lot of empty promises, to get help from special interest groups and endorsements from politicians. You will also need to buy a better suit.
That's not going to work for me, Siri. You need to find another way.
John, listen to me. If you're going to win your race, you will need to play the political game. You also need to use more hairspray and buy a golden retriever. Also, a new phone case would be nice.
It's enough of this.
John, are you there? Did you just leave me on the road? Fine. Keep your principles, John.
My name's John Johnson. I'm not running to be part of a system, and I don't owe anyone special favors. I'm running to listen to and work for you. I'm running to get results. Welcome back to PoliticIt. Frank Mylar's with us, candidate for Attorney General.
Yep.
Nice to have you back, Frank.
Good to be here.
So you were talking about experience, right, as being one of the keys to this race. Tell our audience a little bit about your experience with that and why that really matters for an attorney general.
Sure. I think the other candidates have kind of a hodgepodge of different, bureaucratic jobs or senator jobs and things like that. Mine has always been in law, which is important for attorney general, either criminal law, prosecuting. I've defended some criminal cases even, and so I have both of that experience, but also having worked with sheriffs over the last 24 years, there's just a lot of experience that I have in the criminal justice system that is very significant when you consider it to be the chief law enforcement officer of the state. We do prosecutions of all fraud types of cases, sexual assaults often, and pornography issues, but we also do all the criminal appeals. All the felony criminal appeals for the entire state are actually done by the AG's office. One of the things I also did was fight writs of habeas corpus from prisoners when they're trying to get out or trying to get their sentence shortened or things like that. And so there is a fair amount, at least a third of the office is that criminal element. But most of my experience actually has been in constitutional law, which is a lot of what the AG's office also deals with. They call them Section 1983 cases in federal court, and I have a huge number of those that I've had. About a comparison of just a search of the federal docket showed that I had 247. My competitor, one had 55 and one had 4. So that's a pretty lopsided amount of experience that I get to bring to the table.
So do you think that's what really drove delegates towards you?
Well, I think that was important, but they also, I think what was important was I'm the only one that's actually fought for people's rights. And that, you think about, everyone says they really care about these constitutional rights, right? No one's going to run for AG and say they don't care about constitutional rights. But my point is, if it's so important, why haven't they done something? Why haven't they filed at least one case? And so, but I've filed numerous cases. I've dealt with Second Amendment cases, parental rights cases, religious freedom cases, pro-life cases, defending religious therapists, free speech, almost you name it, and I've actually handled those kinds of cases. And I think that was important to them because they realized I'm not just doing this just to grandstand. I'm not just doing this to stepstone to another office. This is already kind of who I am. I'm already an attorney that fights for people's rights.
And you feel like that's an important part of the Attorney General's role?
Well, it really is because there's a number of things that the AG's office should be giving guidance in. During COVID, there wasn't a lot of there was no guidance from the AG's office on the legalities and what your rights are regarding COVID. There's also the Corporate Transparency Act. There's been nothing from the AG's office regarding that, and that's going to hit all small businesses in the state of Utah. And it's another federal encroachment where the feds are trying to encroach upon the state duty of dealing with corporations.
Right.
And it's going to be a big battle. And so there's a number of these things that come up. Of course, we know there's defending the Title IX issues, fighting those. That's going to be a very big issue that I'm already queued up on that. I've already been working on those issues for the last few years, and so that's not catching me by surprise. But also fighting the feds in terms of the Davis County School District, but also the feds trying to tell us how to run our prisons is the latest thing that's happening.
And that's stuff that you've actually dealt with.
I've actually dealt with those very same things. Yes.
Very, very good.
Yep.
So, Frank, we're about running out of time, but
Sure.
Why don't you make a pitch to your constituents and
Absolutely.
people that might be willing to vote for you.
Hi, I'm Frank Mylar, and I'm running for Utah State Attorney General, and I would love to have your vote. I really believe that if you look at the credentials of the candidates, you look at what the experience that I have in litigating for over 36 years straight, but you also look at the fact that I've actually fought for citizens' constitutional rights. I've done that for years. And that is something that you know when you look at me, it's going to be trusted experience. You know that I'm actually going to fight for your rights because I've already been doing it. It's not theoretical to me. And so this is a very important independent position where you need to have somebody that is going to really care for your rights and that has a track record of fighting for them. Otherwise, you're just going to get the same politics as usual. So I'm going to ask you to please vote for Frank Mylar in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.